welcome to Kim Talks Resilience, where we share stories of insight and inspiration in life, love, and business with resilient women from around the world. Speaking with authors, entrepreneurs, founders, and coaches to learn their strategies for a more resilient life so we can all build the life we love. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. Alrighty. Welcome back. Today's going to be a great talk because we're going to be talking about what are we doing to contribute back to society? How are we making this a better place? And how do we feel better about ourselves in moving forward? And we're going to be touching on a couple things that I'm actually a big time advocate of and have supported personally for a long time because I love the sustainable clothing. There's a great movie out called Blue Earth that talks about how our denim dyeing is causing issue. Like, I love this conversation. And Rachel is here as somebody who not only has worn the clothes and promoted clothes, but now is flipping that over to the advocacy side. Rachel is a former high school English teacher turned model and fashion writer who advocates for sustainable style and educates future fashion leaders. Rachel empowers others to learn about sustainable fashion through her blog, About Your Clothes, and her community service work with, I love this one, Dress for Success. What a great program. And we're going to get into that a bit. Rachel has navigated a dynamic career from earning a master's degree in management and leadership to, get this, modeling and writing, with journeys that have taken her from Australia to the US to China. After her most recent national finalist experience at the Miss Galaxy Australia pageant, Rachel plans to expand her mission of helping young people live a more sustainable lifestyle with conscious fashion and to empower women through Dress for Success. And I let's bring her in because we have a lot in common. Hey, Rachel.
Hi, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing better now that you're here. I'm doing better.
I love to hear that.
I'm excited to dive into what you're doing with Dress for Success and what the next journey is, because it's and most people don't even know the scope of what Dress for Success does. But let's start first with, who is Rachel? Where are you coming from? And what are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm a model. I'm a fashion writer. I write about sustainable fashion, and I'm also a beauty pageant competitor, and I live in Sydney, Australia. So at the other end of the earth from you, Kim. But yeah, I started out as a high school English teacher, and then I, by chance, went on to do beauty pageants, which rolled into a modeling career, which then rolled into my current career as a fashion writer.
So you must be very tall. You can never tell how tall somebody is when they're sitting down. If you have done runway, you're probably pretty tall. How tall are you, Rachel?
I'm about 5'8". So we do centimeters here. So that's 173 centimeters.
Awesome. I'm 5'8" too, but I think I'm wider than you are. Like, I could have been the model for KFC, but that's Kentucky Fried
Chicken. I have done modeling for KFC. So,
so let's talk about, okay, so you have this education. You've gone to school. You've gotten the debt for it. You've become a teacher. What was that moment in your teaching career that you decided that this is not the trajectory for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my parents come from a teaching background, but it's for adult education, so university level and things of that nature. And I always wanted to be a writer. And I said to my parents when I think I was about 6 years old, I said, Mom, Dad, I really want to be a writer. And they were a bit worried because they had never done anything like that before. And they'd always gone into, a very saleable skill. Teaching is very saleable. So when I reached 18 and I finished school, I still wanted to be a writer. And they said, well, Rachel, you have to get a saleable skill. Have you thought about teaching? And I was like, well, yeah, okay. I'll go and do English teaching because that's the closest I'm going to get to being a writer. So I did my 4-year degree, my bachelor's of teaching, where I specialized in English teaching and also modern history. So pretty much from the medieval period up to about 2010. And I loved it. I had such a great time. And then when I actually went out to do my practical teaching in the workplace, I kind of realized that maybe this isn't where I belong. And it wasn't because of the kids or anything like that. It was actually because of the workplace environment. And as a young woman, I really experienced a lot of very interesting interactions with older staff. And I just thought, this is not where I need to be. So I kind of flipped it around and decided to go and do a master's degree because I'd always wanted to do postgraduate study because my mum actually has a PhD. So I thought that was quite cool. And I thought I'd go and do something very similar. So I ended up doing that. And from there, I just kind of rolled off into a kind of entrepreneurial mindset. And I was pretty much really one of the first people in my family, aside from my dad, who has had their own sort of business and entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, it's very different from having that a steady paycheck. Like it's you have to have a risk tolerance for sure. So
Oh, definitely.
I can see you struggling in going into a school environment because being a young female, first of all, right?
Mhm.
And it would be not only the peers, but it would be the students. If you're in like a middle school or high school, now you've got that whole student layer that, now you're navigating. No, this is appropriate. This is not appropriate. This is,
Mm.
yeah. So I can absolutely see that. I've had a couple friends over the years that have gone through those same challenges. I want to dive into your blog a bit. Um, so here's a stat that's interesting. There are a billion blogs globally. So isn't that crazy? We've got
I'm not
like
surprised.
40 million YouTube channels and a billion blogs globally. So take us down that road of starting this blog and maybe what you've learned from becoming recognized as a professional blogger.
Yeah, so I've been blogging now for about a year by myself. It's all, one woman job. And prior to that, I have worked for other people to create content, mostly surrounding fashion and beauty and wellness and things. But I really am quite passionate about the sustainable fashion area. So that's kind of where I cut my teeth in that area. And then I kind of saw, as I was continuing my career through fashion writing for other businesses, that sustainability started coming up as quite a big topic during the pandemic around about 2020. And that's also when I was at fashion business school. So I was kind of changing my mindset about how to use my writing skills in a business capacity. And I saw that there was this need to be filled about writing about fashion so that everyday people understand it. And then from there, it really took me a couple of years to get to grips with the information because there is a lot of information about
Yeah.
sustainability, heaps, and it's always constantly changing. There's always new laws coming out. And even understanding that as a professional person who works in the space, it's very complicated. And then trying to have that in a way that an everyday person can understand and then also action in their own lives is also something that hasn't really been tested yet for any sort of fashion brand or fashion
Yep.
advocacy service or anything like that. There are a couple out there, but not in the way where they speak to everyday people, that they can have something actionable, like small things that they can take away for their everyday life.
Yeah, it was interesting. I went to the uh what was it? Is it Blue Earth? I'm pretty sure it's Blue Earth. What is the name of the film? I'm just trying to find it. It's an indie film and I'm just trying to find it. And it is about the denim industry in India and
Mhm.
how the dyes are actually killing the water. So and I think this is something we need to talk about because also with the world being in a I don't want to use the word recession because I don't want to scare anybody. But I think we're in a more conservative spending space. I think the world is looking, how do we be more conservative on our spending? And one of the best ways you can do that is to go into, sustainable fashion.
Yeah.
Adopt that idea. Is there anybody that's actually? Is there a like fashion designer or seamstress or anything like that that runs a blog on how to take like an 80s jacket and modify it to be current? Like, because a lot of 80s and 90s clothes are at all of these thrift shops. How do we take
Yeah.
that and adopt that into today's fashions?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love 80s and 90s fashion. When I was in Melbourne a couple of years ago, there's this amazing vintage shop called Retro Star, and I found this absolutely wonderful lamb's wool and angora sweater from the 1980s, and it has this beautiful peacock sequins all over it, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. And now, because I'm going into winter here in Australia, it's time to bring out the peacock sweater. um, so it's just finding your own personal style, I think, is something that is very important. I think that, yeah, having a little bit of creativity in the way you dress, and maybe going against trends, and maybe picking up things that you personally find interesting, can really help you kind of combat that treadmill sort of that we're
Yeah.
always on with trends and things like that. So I personally don't do fashion design. I love looking at fashion design. I have friends who are fashion designers. I'm always interested in hearing about what they're doing. And also, even on my own podcast, which is called About Your Clothes, I had one of my friends from beauty pageants who is an absolutely amazing DIY creator. I actually just finished the national finals last weekend. And
Congratulations.
thank you. She actually became Mrs. Galaxy Australia. So she won her section, which is incredible. And she did a lot of her outfits by hand. She created a lot of them. It took her months, but she's so passionate about it. And that's really what I love to see, as someone who's passionate about sustainable fashion, people actually going out and living that mission.
And I think nothing's more fashionable than confidence and having something that fits you well, right? I think any decade goes now, I'll see everything from steampunk on the streets, which is indicative of, 1890 to 1910, to, rockabilly, which is your 40s to 50s. We see clothing that's in line with the 30s, the roaring 20s and 30s, with the pencil skirts and such. We see bell bottoms. I mean, you see everything every decade. There are some things that should never come back. Just saying.
Yeah.
There are some fashions that should never come back. Mutton chops and 20 chains. Like, I'm just saying, and the big deep shirt open with the big flare collars and all the fur coming out. Let's just avoid
Yeah.
that, folks. That's just not that.
Yeah,
That
maybe.
wasn't nice the first time around. Yeah, yeah, baby.
Well, I wasn't there the first time around, and I don't know if I want to live through that. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just something that just doesn't work for me on that one. Um, I want to go into where your business is sitting right now. So you have your blog that people can access
yes.
you. You have your podcast. How many episodes are you in on your podcast?
I think I'm up to about 4 now. So I only recently started it in February, and it has been a really big learning curve. It's nothing that I've ever done before. I'm a writer, so I come from, a words background rather than an audio and also audiovisual background. So it's been a really wild ride teaching myself how to do all that. And as I said before, I am a one-woman show. So learning all that on top of working as a writer, and I also work as a fashion educator at a fashion school. So on top of all of that, it's a really interesting section of my life that's constantly growing.
So you're building your brand identity in
Yes,
this while you're working full time also. Okay.
yes,
And
yes,
that's something we see a lot of women do. They bootstrap their businesses while they build their brand authority, right?
yes.
And what are some of so in building this out, so where Do you use Substack, Medium? What platforms do you use to distribute your blog on?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I have another thing that I also do in my free time where my limited free time, but my free time nonetheless. I have an Instagram where I teach young people who are aspiring to be models how to actually go about getting into that career, because I always get questions on it, and I could never find anywhere that I could direct people to get answers. And that honestly was just an experiment to see what would happen. And one of my reels ended up getting about 14 million views in October last
Wow.
year. I know, it was incredible. Like, that's never happened to me before. And I've been doing this for a while. I've been on Instagram for about 5 or 6 years and never had that sort of success. And from there, everything just kind of blew up. So I've got about 7,000 ish followers at the moment. And then through that channel, that's where I start talking about sustainable fashion, because it is quite difficult to get people interested in sustainable fashion. And I think maybe one of the reasons for that is that it can feel like, oh, I'm being told that, I'm not a good person for not being part of the sustainable fashion movement, but I don't know how to contribute to this movement. So that's something that I'm really working into showing my followers at the minute. And it seems to be really working quite well. I get very surprising messages like, oh, I didn't know this. That's a great, documentary reference or whatever that I put on my stories or things like that. So I'm kind of crossing over at the moment, these two areas, and just kind of seeing where it goes.
Absolutely. And there's always room in any niche for voice of authority, right? For
100%.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, so as you're building this forward, what the goals would be, you're looking to move into work with more with Dress for Success, and you have a
Hmm.
teaching spot within the industry you're already speaking on. So that's it all really aligns. It's got great synergy to help propel you moving forward as a brand, as a recognized brand within an authority space on sustainable fashion. So tell us a little bit about what you're working towards in Dress for Success and what Dress for Success is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dress for Success is a not for profit organization. It is a global organization. So, here where I live in Sydney, they have I guess, like a regional office. And what we do is we help to empower women to employment. So, these women come from lots of different types of backgrounds. They could be refugees, they could be coming from domestic violence. Lots of different things as well. And what we do is we offer different types of services that can be styling within the styling studio, which is what I do. So I'm being trained as a stylist at the minute. It's really fun. And then we also have like interview skills and things of that nature as well. So they really do cover the whole gamut of how to get a job, and also what to wear and how to present yourself on your first week of your job. So it's a really good springboard for people who have been struggling, especially women who've been struggling. And it's just something it really fills my heart with joy to go in and see the immediate change that you can make when you dress someone in work clothes and they walk out and they feel so much more confident. I had one lady once, she just was glowing, and it was really and honestly a life-changing experience as like a young woman, seeing that impact that you can have on other people just by a very simple action of helping them dress in secondhand, good quality clothes.
Exactly. And I think I love how oh, and the name of that movie is called River Blue. It's a documentary that came out in, it's got to be like 6 years old.
Yeah.
And I went and watched it. It was I think it was at like it's an indie. So,
Mhm.
so good. Absolutely a
Yeah.
movie that people should watch. Find that River Blue documentary. Can fashion save the planet? That's the question, right? And seeing how fashion actually is destroying the planet. I can't recall how many thousands of pounds of clothing that go into our infills every year, but it's astronomical. Like
It
it's
really is.
it's mind-boggling. But I love the reframing the conversation around it and calling it sustainable fashion, attainable fashion, right? These are things that
Yeah.
I'm hearing, um, versus secondhand or
Mhm.
used, right?
Yes.
It's like when we talk about houses, for example, houses will be around for 100 years or greater, 200, 300 years. And we don't call it a used house when we put it
No.
on the market, right? It's still a great product. It still can sit there and house you and make you feel great and have your friends over. And I think we have to look at some of the language we use around fashion, um,
Mm.
because we've been tackling, you know, how we present fashion. We've been tackling, ageism and size discrepancies, and we've been diversity within, even our representation with models. We're seeing a beautiful diversity, which 20 years ago we would have never seen,
Nope.
right?
No, never seen that.
Um, so we have to have that same mindset as to what we're buying, right? What we're putting on our backs. Um, where do you want to go with all this? Like, this is such a cool journey you're on.
I know, isn't it amazing? Honestly, at the moment, I'm just kind of still learning how to do all this stuff, and I'm really shocked at how effective it's been. So, just recently, I was saying before, I was a national finalist for Miss Galaxy Australia, which is a beauty pageant here. Beauty pageants are not that big in Australia, not like they are in the US and other countries. So, I would really love to continue that journey, whether that's with Galaxy or in another capacity. But I actually started my entire career, even before modeling, in beauty pageants. And that's really where my heart lies and where I get so much joy and also a lot of friendships and connections with other people. And where I feel like I can speak about my advocacy for sustainable fashion, because in your everyday life, it is hard to find those moments where you can connect with people about something you really care about. And
Yeah.
that's the value that I get from beauty pageants. And I've been doing them for probably about probably about 6 years now, and they've really shaped me as a woman. They've really shaped me, as an adult. And I moved up into the Ms division, which is 27 and over. So showing my age a little bit, but it's such a great experience. Like, you become a role model for other people who are coming up through the ranks, and you show them what you can do as a young woman. You don't have to be, famous to make a difference. You can literally put on a sash and a crown and go out, and people will ask you questions about, why are you wearing these sparkly things? And that's how that conversation starts. So I find that as a really interesting sort of backdoor into a really important conversation.
And I think also knowing when you are buying new, know where it comes from. You need to know
100%.
how that product is being made, right? I just Googled, just out of curiosity, uh, sustainable fashion shows,
Yes.
and
Interesting.
there is like five big ones. Helsinki Fashion, and these are designers that work with sustainable clothing. So they are upcycling clothing and creating entire runway shows. Like, how
Yeah,
cool
that's
is
really
that?
interesting. That's
Um,
really cool.
yeah, they have Sustainable Fashion Week in the UK, and that's September to October, September 25th, October 8th. So what I would love is, like, if there was a magazine that was a bit fashion, a bit story, and then had how to adapt. Like, how do I hem something? How do I take a sleeve off? Right? Because that would be so cool, because I think that we saw a resurgence of bread making during COVID.
Yes,
So
my partner did that. I ate a lot of bread during lockdown.
so
It
we
was
saw.
really good.
Yes, but now moving into this space, what if we had a resurgence of how to do your own mending, or how to do your own adaptive, right? Because a lot of people, I think, are afraid to buy a sustainable product, right? Something that is an upcycle or recycle product. because they don't know how to adapt it to that. Right?
Yes.
So not only how to layer or stuff, but does it need to have something taken in, let out, elongated, shortened? It's all very hard to elongate anything. Of somebody with a 34-inch inseam, let me tell you, very hard to do that. Copenhagen has a fashion forum for sustainable fashion. Where else are we at? Yeah, so like I'm not seeing one in the United States. Maybe something we could think about.
Maybe
Maybe,
it is.
maybe. I just think something like that would be so cool because we got Fashion Week in New York. Why don't
Yeah,
we have a runway for sustainable fashions?
exactly. And the thing with the
Reimagine.
sustainable, yeah, the thing with sustainable fashion as well is it's not just what your clothes are made out of, and also where where they're actually coming from, where they're being made. There's also people who make them, and a great documentary that really changed how I think about where my clothes are coming from is called The True Cost, and I think that was released in about
Saw that one too.
2015.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
it made
That's
me
amazing.
cry. It's literally the only documentary that has really ever made me cry. I'm not really a big crier at movies and things like that. Maybe
Yeah,
like Marley and Me, the movie, that was
yeah,
really awful to watch. But The True Cost, yeah, seeing the stories of a lot of the people who make clothing are women, and
yep,
they're also working in unsafe conditions, and they have families to support, and a lot of the time they don't return home to their villages for months on end because they're so far away
yep.
and they don't see their family. So just thinking about where our clothes are actually coming from in terms of the hands that touch our clothes and the many hands that our clothes pass through before
Yep.
they reach us. It's such a big connected web. It's a worldwide, connected network. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that. And that's part of what I try to do with About Your Clothes is isolating and spotlighting those stories so that people have something to connect to, because it's hard to care about something that you've never seen for yourself unless you hear the story about it first.
I completely agree. Can you share with us a time in your journey? It could be childhood up to business, whatever works. That without that moment of resiliency, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And what were the actionable steps within that resiliency that got you to push through?
Yeah, absolutely. I probably have two things now because I've got a new one.
Awesome.
So, yeah, when I was starting out modeling, I actually started out as a freelancer. So, going into a hyper competitive industry, not really knowing anything, and having to learn on the fly it is really difficult, especially as a young person. So, finding people that I connected with and that I could trust in that time really helped me build that resilience in a really difficult industry, where I had dreams to achieve things and now I've actually achieved them. So that's amazing. Doing photo shoots, traveling overseas to China was a really big life-changing moment for me. I really learned a lot while I was there. So going through those difficult sort of experiences, and also the physically and mentally difficult challenge of working as a model, because as much as it looks like it's really fun, you might be working from 5 a.m. through to midnight of the next day, or have multiple shoots and things like that. So time management is really important for that as well. On top of that, recently I just came back from the Australia Galaxy National Finals, and I actually came second place in my division. So that was a huge moment for me, and I'm still kind of riding the wave of that moment. But it's not easy coming second. It's not easy when you don't win, and it's a moment where you have to really draw on that resilience that you've built over a long time. And if I hadn't have had all those experiences leading up to today, I probably wouldn't have been able to stand on stage and smile and be happy for somebody else, because I know that I've built all these amazing experiences across my life, and that just because I didn't win that day doesn't mean that I won't ever win again. So that sort of mindset, it's about how you approach something rather than what actually happens to you. Life doesn't happen to you. You shape life.
Life, I like that. Life doesn't happen to you. You shape life. I like that. I like that. What's a strategy that you use for your time management? Because you just mentioned time management, and that's something that we all struggle with.
Yeah, definitely. Well, because I come from a teaching background, you do have to be really good at time management. And whether that's I have a calendar on my phone and I put everything inside that calendar so that I don't forget what I need to do. Having 6-month plans is really important to me as well. I might even stretch it out to a year. So things that I want to achieve and also actionable steps of how I'm going to do that. So if I wanted to, start About Your Clothes, what did I need to start that? I needed a website, I needed content, I needed ideas for content. So drilling down into that minutiae of how to actually go about doing something rather than having the big dreams, you need to have the actionable steps to achieve the big dream.
I 110% agree on that. Yeah, because each step builds, right? How do you eat an
Yeah.
elephant one bite at a time, right? I'm not, folks, PETA, please do not phone me. I'm not proposing to go and eat an elephant. It is a saying, okay? I'm 55. It's a saying, folks. I got to make sure that I qualify these things. All righty. So let's move into books you recommend and
Oh,
why.
yes.
So we
I
always
love books.
awesome books you recommend and
Mhm.
why.
Yeah, definitely. So, because I'm in fashion, of course, I went through a whole period of reading fashion books, but I love memoirs. They're my most favorite type of book. And it's kind of like getting a really great window into somebody's life and the way that they think about things. And especially in the fashion industry, it can be difficult to find people who are willing to talk about their experiences
Yeah.
in fashion. So one of them that I really love is The Chiffon Trenches by Andre Leon Talley. And that shows not only his fashion journey within his actual career and what happened to him, but also the things that happened prior to that in his childhood, all the way through to adulthood and his relationships and how he viewed the world. And it was just such a beautiful journey through his life. And I think it makes it even more poignant that he's not here anymore. So looking back on what he did was absolutely incredible. He was the first African American man to achieve what he achieved. And so he was one of one in a very difficult space. So I think that it's a really unique story. I think that anyone who wants to work in fashion or a competitive industry or feels like they are the one of one or in the minority, because I know that as women, when we walk into a room, sometimes we can feel like we're the only one of one. So it is a very interesting perspective and something that can really help to shape how you live your own life.
That is such great insight. The memoirs of people you want to model after you, people that have paved the way, that that's almost like having a mentorship with that person, right? Learning
Yeah.
from them. That's awesome. That's awesome. So I want to make sure that people can find you. So let's go with first your website and what people can expect from your website, and then your social medias where they can find you, follow you, and engage with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is www.therachelgallagher.com. You might need to check the spelling of my second name. It is a bit of a difficult one. So that's where I talk about my experiences with modeling. And that's where I do a lot of my work with aspiring models. And then also I've got www.aboutyourclothes.com, where you can learn more about sustainable fashion and how to implement those things in your everyday life. On top of that, I love Instagram, and I'm always on Instagram DMing people and looking at interesting content. So you can go and find me at rachelg.img. So I am for Mary and then G. And you can also find me at About Your Clothes with an underscore at the end.
Awesome. Awesome. And if people message you through one of those, you'll respond to them. You're the
Oh,
gal.
yeah. Yeah, I'm the
Very
girl to
cool.
go to. My
Very
partner's
cool.
always asking me, who are you messaging? There's so many people talking to you. So I love DMs. I love connecting with people I've never met before and hearing your story and what you want to learn that I can potentially help you with. So definitely come and visit my Instagram. I'll be there waiting.
Awesome. I always like to close the show out with a positive message, something along those lines. This is what you supplied. So give us your quote, your inspirational quote that helps you push through, and why that quote's important to you.
Yeah, definitely. So this quote is actually really special to me. I discovered it when I was about 12, and it's from the movie Legally Blonde. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I love it.
I
Yes,
love
I
Legally
love it.
Blonde.
Yep.
Yeah, because the journey of Elle Woods, she talks about, how people perceive her because of the way that she looks on the outside, and how people have always thought, oh, you're pretty, you won't do anything else except be Miss, Hawaiian Tropics or whatever. So that sort of contradiction between that expectation and what she actually goes on to achieve, as a lawyer, she has to have a lot of faith in herself to be able to do that, and to combat all of the outside sort of noise that she hears on her journey from other people, pretty much saying, oh, you can't do it because you're not good enough. That's essentially what they're saying to her. So always having faith in yourself is something that I've taken with me since the age of 12 through till now, and on my journey through teaching, through beauty pageants, through modeling, and now in writing.
Amazing. Amazing. I love what you're doing. And I love that it has such a future forward vision. It's so cool. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today, Rachel. I'm excited to watch your career grow. And folks, we're going to have all of Rachel's information, including her podcast links in the show notes, including all of her, blog information. Everything will be in the show notes. So you can find her, you can follow her, you can engage with her, and, find out a bit more about wearing confidence through creativity of your sustainable opportunities. Excellent. Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you for joining us here today at Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, and I'd love to invite you to our resilient community at resilientgift.com. That's resilientgift.com, and we'll send you our magazine and tickets for upcoming events and all sorts of cool things we do here. So be sure to keep watching. And you know what? Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, because we all know that sharing is caring.